Welcome to the Global Glug, un podcast internazionale sobre spirits dove condividiamo historias y tradizioni main in English con un toque de español, italiano y un accenno de français. Chin chin! Hello and welcome back to the Global Glug. My name is Renato Molo and today we are virtually in Barbados. We are with Laurent Cosson, Global Brand Director of Mount Gay. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Good morning, Renato, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are or when you listen to us.
Welcome.
Good to see you again, Renato.
Yes, good to see you again. When was it when we met? It was in
almost
in January.
January last year? This year. Yeah.
Yes, this year. It's almost a year. Yeah, we are recording now at the end of December.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really appreciate it. Of course, I went to visit the distillery, and I will ask you later about the single estate series, which I really enjoy. I'm not drinking it now because it's in the morning. It's just 9 o'clock, so I'm not drinking now. Yes, I wanted first of all ask you, Laurent, where you are from.
Yes.
Your role at Mount Gay. Can you just introduce yourself to us, please?
Yes, well, thank you. Well, actually, first, I would like to say that for me, it's a great opportunity to also give you, Renato, my point of view as Laurent Cosson on, the business and the rum and spirits and eventually wine if we want to. That's not necessarily the official Mount Gay position or Rémy Cointreau position, but really more as a friend, in this open conversation together. What I feel, what I see, what I've seen in the past months and years and decades even, because yes, I'm not that young, and how I feel that things could evolve. And indeed, today I'm the Global Brand Director at Mount Gay, and I've been here for 3 years now, but I've been working for Rémy Cointreau for 22 years in 7 countries, I think, and probably 7 or 8 positions. So the thing for me was it almost started from the very start, because I was born in Champagne, in France. And I remember walking every day in front of Moët et Chandon on one side and Perrier-Jouët a bit further, etc. So seeing all these foreigners, coming to a beautiful region of France to buy the local products, I always thought that there's something amazing that can take people from a place to another to rediscover what terroir is about, what craft is about, but what also, wine and spirits and let's say the social glue that alcohol can represent, how it was actually exported or how it can be promoted around the globe. And that's really what drove my, my interest into spirits. And so I studied in France and then I moved to Canada. And this is where in Canada I joined Rémy Cointreau first in their distribution network. Then I moved to travel retail within the structure, and then I went back to France to join again and build Rémy Cointreau duty-free divisions at the time. Then I joined Mount Gay first time as what was the title? It was Business Development Director, where I was actually building the brand in everything that is not the US or Barbados. So it was really when we started to first launch Black Barrel. Actually, Black Barrel, the first iteration, was one of my interesting projects. I remodeled the packaging, but also developed Mount Gay at the time in Australia, in Canada, in the UK, in Europe, in Japan. We launched EXO in Japan as well. So really continuing this international spread of Mount Gay, which is today in about 80 different countries. Then I moved to another brand within Rémy Cointreau. Then I moved to New York to take the lead of Louis XIII, which is the cognac very exclusive cognac brand of the group. And then moving back to Mount Gay and now based in Barbados for at least a bit more than 3 years today. Voilà, that was a long introduction.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, so we have an idea. So just a question about, you said you were designing the packaging. So is the packaging now all comes from your department or your idea, or how does it work exactly, the packaging?
So when was it? I think in 2018 or 2019. So I had left Mount Gay at the time, and the team decided to move into a different type of packaging. So the packaging evolved to something a bit more discerning, a bit more, let's say, classic in the style. This is the one that we have today. When at the time when I was there, the idea was more to create something a bit more striking and a bit more in the codes of bourbon and whiskey, because as we know, the Mangay style, we don't add any sugar. So the idea is that, especially with black barrel, the finishing in the deeply charred bourbon barrel gives this kind of more, is it bourbon style? Probably not, but you get this caramel, but also smoky notes that make it very different compared to a lot of other rums in a certain way, and especially the sweet ones. So the idea was to appeal to, yes, obviously the rum drinkers, but also create a kind of trigger or a kind of hook to bourbon drinkers, because at the time, 12, 15 years ago, bourbon was already on the rise, and the US is and was at the time our number one market. So it was a way for us to differentiate ourselves and be slightly more interesting for a broader audience.
Okay, yeah. So basically, yeah, I know that whiskey drinkers are always, how can I say? It's maybe the first target of rum producers, because there's a knowledge behind it. There's a lot of people which
Exactly.
know, and it's not always easy to make them change.
No, that's probably one of the biggest or tricky challenges that we're facing, because, as you said, education is super important. And in a way, whiskey drinkers, bourbon drinkers, they have this curiosity because they like to experience new distilleries, etc. But they also have the knowledge on how things are made. And it's part of the things that, if you look at the broader, obviously, we have a lot of geeks in the rum community. But it's true that, and this is something that you're facing every day with your other hat, actually, Renato, is that education is the only way for people to really dig further and understand the differences between rums, because otherwise, we have a lot of preconception in the rum world. Yep. I would say, unfortunately, is that it's usually very affordable, let's say cheap, and very sweet. And it's something that you will drink with mixing it with anything else, because you kind of need to hide the harshness or the lack of taste, and that's something that we've been fighting with for, I would say, now, we can say decades. Nevertheless, it's true that premiumization and rum is happening, that the level of education is growing, but there's still so much more to do. And that was also the reason why probably we wanted to look at other types of brown or aged spirits drinkers rather than only focusing on rum.
So that's also maybe why Mangay decided recently now. I think you started way before that, before launching the product, of course. But you launched recently the single estate series.
Yes.
Which I bought a bottle in
Thank
Barbados.
You for your support.
And yeah, so of course this started way before, because I know Mangay invested money for a sugar mill. You also invested money for bringing back the sugar cane. I mean, Mangay, I know, of course, it's a small island, Barbados. A lot of molasses, you have to import it because you cannot face the supply. I mean, you cannot produce enough molasses on Barbados because the island is tiny.
It is tiny.
So deciding to go to a single estate series means a lot of investments. I say again, the sugar mill and also farming the sugarcane. Why decided Mangay to do that? Is it because it's a trend? You said geeky, more geeky people interested into rum. Can you maybe explain us why, or your point of view on this case?
Yes. But it's actually the result of a few very long journeys. The first one, obviously, is being part of Rémy Cointreau. When Rémy Cointreau acquired Mangay first, it's funny because it's a lot of nice little anecdotes, but it started in 1989 when Rémy Cointreau decided to acquire a distribution network in the US. And part of this distribution network, or this US distributor, owned the Mangay brand.
Okay.
So in a way, Rémy Cointreau acquired the Mangay brand and really appreciated, obviously, having now a rum in their portfolio. But that's really how things started. Now, Rémy Cointreau being very much a brand where exceptional product is at the core, they wanted to make sure that, like for their other products, the rum that they would produce or they would sell would be produced by them. They would know how and where raw materials would come from, etc. So in 2012, and it took a long time because the distillery that was supplying the rum, Rémy Cointreau didn't own it yet. And the acquisition of the distillery that you visited up in the north, it was kind of split in two. You had on one hand the distillation and the distillery, so where you saw the pot stills and the column, etc. So that belonged to the Ward family. since the start of the 19th century. And this is really part of the many evolutions of the Mangay story since 1703. I mean, it changed hands a lot of time, but since the start of the 20th century, it belonged to the Ward family. And then the aging part belonged to another member of the Ward family, and that had been sold separately to this American distributor, which then got acquired by Rémy Cointreau. So in a way, Rémy Cointreau was owning the aging facility and the bottling facility, but not the distillation part. And in 2012, first, concentration of assets with the acquisition of the distillery. So meaning all the pot stills and as well the staff that was working there in a way that we could continue the process.
So Rémy Cointreau bought the part which was of the American distributor.
In 89, and then from the Ward family in 2012.
Okay, yeah.
So 1989, then 2012. So it took a while. Rémy Cointreau was the sole client of the distillery, and they were our sole supplier, which was also quite interesting because it was very integrated from the very start. And then what happened is, again, little anecdote, the estate that used to be the Mangay estate and the Oxford estate, 3 centuries ago, so that part of land became available for purchase because, some real estate wanted to develop a golf course, can you believe it? A golf course in St. Lucie, so in the north of Barbados. And in a way, we, at the time I was part of the Mangay team, we presented that to the family, the main shareholder of Rémy Cointreau, and they said, "Yeah, let's try to get it because then we can do a fully integrated Let's put everything back together from soil to distillation." So it took a little while, but in 2015, the estate got acquired by Rémy Cointreau as well, meaning it was the first time for probably, for sure, more than 150 years that from land to distillation, it was under the same roof. So now it's true that when you are at the distillery, you can just look south and you see what used to be and what is now back the Mangay estate with sugarcane and not golf course, but sugarcane being grown there again. So as you said a bit earlier, Renato, what happened is that from, let's say, aging to then distillation, and now we became again farmers, and also understanding how sugarcane is growing, how to select your sugarcanes, etc. So for instance, we have 13 different types of cultivars, so of different types of sugarcane being grown currently on the estate. You're going to say, are you going to do like different types of, so far we don't know, but the idea is really to also diversify and make sure that we have the best crop that fits with the type of soil we have and the type of wind and the type of rain, etc. So it's learning every day. Yeah. It's true that it's a very different job as well. And again, we've been learning every day since 2015. So now to go back to single estate and the single estate series. So we have this, let's say, this shareholder who's obviously very involved and who wants to make sure that we, as Mangay, follow the guidelines of the group, which is artisanal, well-made spirits. We have this kind of trend where indeed there are more and more geeks, but there are also, let's not call everyone geeks. I mean, it's also more and more people who appreciate great quality products, but also products with a real story that is not just, a fake fantasy world reference, but really something
marketing
this one, even though there's some marketing, and I'm very pleased to say that it's been hopefully well marketed. It was my little baby, but at the end of the day, it was really a very close collaboration between Trudian, master blender, the farm team, Jacqueline Brooms, who used to be our agricultural engineer and estate manager. So all these people work together in really creating a product that would be the perfect mirror of what the terroir of Barbados and the terroir of the north of Barbados and the Mangay estate could be. So I'm going to tell you how also the first one came out and what we've done since then, and I can even give you a couple of hints of what can come up soon.
Please.
But the idea was very much to create something that nobody else could do, that historically is very anchored in the Mangé history, but also is a pure illustration of what Barbados has to offer as a rum. So, I mean, I can give you many details, but for me, one of the most important things was to have something that obviously Trudian would be very proud of, and that everyone at Mangé would have been involved in creating. And it's true that we say from soil to sip today when we talk about single estate, but the idea was that everyone at the farm team touched it. Everyone at the distillery, because it was really a different and a new process, we had to obviously create molasses out of this. And it's not so easy. As you said, you know, we buy about 90% of our molasses from other islands in the Caribbean. Only 10% comes from Barbados because of the size of Barbados.
Yeah.
But here we really wanted all our molasses for single estate, obviously to come from the estate. But then to come from the estate, what you have to do is to make sure that it's processed separately. And at the time, we didn't have a mill. Now we do have our own mill, which is also, as you said, we became millers after becoming farmers. But we had to, in a way, organize ourselves with the only sugarcane mill that is in Barbados. And in a way, the only way to have our own things processed separately was to wait after all the harvest of all the island would have been processed, to ask them to clean everything in their mill, which obviously they don't do usually because it's like, well, it's the same for everyone, and to make sure that we would get a different kind of quality of molasses. Usually we get C-grade molasses, which is what we call the black strap. That's what you get from extracting, because what's important when you press the sugarcane is to extract the sugar. Us at Mangé, for that, we don't care about the sugar. Sugar is our byproduct. It's not the molasses being the byproduct of the sugar. For us, it's the other way around. And we wanted to have grade A molasses, which are more concentrated in sugar, and then allowing us, when fermented, to get something much more interesting in terms of flavor and much more complex. Then Trudian decided to do a 9-day fermentation, which allows to have a second fermentation within the fermentation and giving us a lot of exotic flavors. All that going to the small pot stills in copper, which gives, again, something completely different to the, let's say, the classic Mangé, even though you still have the style of Mangé that is very much there, you know, this pear and a bit of banana. But in terms of complexity, flavors, layers, I mean, you've tasted the first edition. There's something that is still very Mangé, but also very different. And it's really like going for... it's almost like if I want to compare with Scotch, it's really going for, instead of a blended whiskey, you go very much for small production, distillery, single malt kind of thing. And this for me has been an amazing result. And that's also the reason why I also wanted to have a packaging that would be different from what we do and much more. I mean, it was not putting gold and making it luxury, etc. For me, it was really an interpretation again of the terroir, but of the authenticity and also the importance of sustainability in the process. Everybody talks about sustainability and environment, etc. I wanted to do it in a way that's saying the top of or the pinnacle of the range at Mangé. This is going to be the illustration of what we believe is important for the environment and the illustration of our sustainability commitment. I don't care about putting some gold, putting some heavy bottles, etc. On the contrary, we'll have the lightest bottle of the whole range. It's going to be a 70% recycled glass. The packaging will be only like monomaterial, carton pressed, etc., so that it can be easily recycled. And that was the process. I mean, it was a fight internally because, you know, let's say we have some cognac and Scotch brands that are also can be quite ostentatious. But the idea was very much to go against the trends. Yes, it's an expensive product, but in a way, it's not expensive. It's, how can I say that?
Kind of an investment, maybe?
Well, it's because the energy, the amount of time, etc. It's what makes the price. It's not just we make a big margin on it and we make a better margin and on the rest. So it's not by applying a label that it became expensive.
Yeah, and this is also gives us an idea about, I mean, to me it's important because normally when we buy a rum, say it's 50, $60, and it's a big companies doing it, we know that there is a catch somehow because they are less expensive. Why? Because there is something behind it. But
Yes.
if you sell a bottle like this and you know it's 100% made in Barbados, 100% made by Mount Gay, with the sugar cane coming there, it's milled there, it's crushed there, it's fermented there. People working there are doing it, of course the price goes up. That's why single estates normally are more expensive because of course everything has to be done on site. And about this product, how was it accepted by the public? What were the feedbacks? I saw you launched the second one.
Yes. Yes, but a good question. Actually, first, and to me, that was probably the best recognition. Let's say that critics over the world, or, well, I mean, I don't count anymore the amount of awards and gold medals that we got with this product, which was honestly, we didn't know. We didn't know. It was the first one, hopefully, of a long series, but we had no idea. Nobody is really doing that kind of thing. A molasses-based, let's say, estate rum is pretty rare. And with this kind of story and anchorage, I mean, yeah, there's no competitor really. So we didn't know, and I knew the price was also kind of a stretch, for sure. Even when you compare with Master Blender Collection, it remains more expensive. So it was a bet. It's also small quantities. So at the end of the day, I mean, I believed in it. Trudian believed in it. We knew that the taste was something exceptional. So we're like, okay, well, let's see. I mean, Mangé has been a pioneer for 3 centuries. Let's see how it goes. We believe in this product. We believe in having something really from the core and from the heart of our country here, and from what comes from the estate. Let's see. The way that it's been received, from rum magazines to rum blogs, but also spirits, like Forbes did some great articles. We had the Rob Report in the US that also loved it. I mean, it was more than we were expecting for the first one, to be honest. The second one was also very well received. In terms of sales, I mean, depending on markets, when you look at the US, it's always a bit more complicated because you have always these 3 tiers that you need to go through. To get the message across, it takes more time. So I know we still have some of the single estate series #1 still available in the US in some stores, but in the UK everything was sold in 3 to 4 months. In France, I mean, despite a change of distributor, I think the sales are going well. In Germany, it went well as well. So slowly but surely, let's say that the key markets that we wanted to hit got hit, and the reaction was very positive. The idea is that also now that we are understanding better the market, we will try to make more available and to better select as well. It's not necessarily a question of market or country, but more a question of cities where we can have as well the support to do it. I used to work on Louis XIII where we have ambassadors, and I believe that for that kind of product, we need also the type of support where you can't just put a single estate on a shelf and hope that it's gonna fly like chocolate for Christmas, for instance. But you need to tell the story. You need to have the right audience in front of you that will understand. For me, it's a bit for the same kind of consumer that will not be afraid to put $50, $60 in a bottle of wine, or go for some type of cigars, or have the opportunity to enjoy a great, massive piece of steak for their barbecue over the weekend. It's really more a product for an Epicurean. Alors you can say for a collector as well, but the way I see it, it's more for an Epicurean who wants to try something new and who wants to share it with people who will appreciate it. It's, I believe, compared to, for instance, a nice bottle of bourbon or scotch that you can tend to drink, on your own or with your best mate, but you keep it quite intimate. I think the good thing with rum is that it's also, and single estate is one of them, it's very accessible in terms of flavors, in terms of aromas that you will discover. Even though there's no sugar added, you still have this roundness and those fruits that are coming in and make it very enjoyable and very easy to sip. So yes, there's a price, but it's also very, very approachable.
I really enjoyed the first one, which is an harvest between 2016 and 2017. I see 4,000 bottles. Are these bottles all gone, or is there still something?
No, there's still a few. There's still a few in the US.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe in some markets. I know from us, everything's gone. Yes.
Okay. And the Mount Gay Single Estate Series Release 2, the second one.
Yes.
2018 harvest, 100% pot still, and also less 5,400 bottles. And I see here this is 100%, so 2018 harvest. What's the difference between these two? It's also...
Yes. From a taste standpoint, or?
Yeah, production maybe before.
Production, it was very similar to the first one, meaning that it's still a 9 days fermentation. It's still obviously 100% sugarcane coming from the estate, but they were processed all at the same time, meaning also why the reason of the blue label. It was because harvests usually are done, let's say, and finish in June. But this time, because of the fact that we had to wait for Port Vale, so the mill, the sugarcane mill in Barbados, to finish everything, we had to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. So in a way, we got access to the mill in July, almost at the time of crop over. But July was pretty warm actually that day, and that's the reason why we decided to go for a blue label. It was because it was a very sunny and very dry and very usually summer. It's more of the rainy season, which was not the case that time. Very different from 2024. And what happened is because we had to wait like this, we had some of the sugarcane that was a bit drier. We didn't get really the kind of yield that we were expecting. But we had a lot of sugarcane. So in a way, the yield that we didn't get from, let's say, all the juice, we got it with the quantity. And in the end, we still got a very good harvest. And that was also a harvest that in terms of taste, apparently, I wasn't there, but that's what Trudian told us. The taste was also very different from the 16 and 17. So she really wanted to do something that was highlighting the 2018 harvest only. So that's the reason why she decided, this time, I won't do a blend of 2 years. I will do a vintage, but I will do we've done 2 distillations that year. And the fact that one waited a bit more for the fermentation to happen, I don't know. I mean, I'm not the super specialist on all this, so I can't give you all the tricky details.
Yeah.
But what happened is that one of the distillation was giving a bit more of citrusy notes, where the other one was really going into already the exotic fruits type straight after the distillation. Okay. And by combining those 2 distillations that happened about a month and a half difference, one I think was in September, the other one end of October or something like this, we had enough differences to put them together and create something with a lot of complexity. But that happened, everything was aged separately. And it's only at blending that the magic happened. Okay. So in a way, you get something that has been aged in ex-bourbon barrels and then blended by Trudian to reach the complexity of the 2402.
Okay, now so basically, you made 2 different distillations with the same harvest. You aged the different distillations in the same barrels. So
same type of barrel,
but same type of but separately, and then you blended them together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because she saw the difference at distillation time, and she was like, "Okay, let's see how they evolve." And that was it. Yeah. To be fair, this single estate series, it's a constant research and development project at the same time. I can't tell you how many types of barrels that we are experiencing each time, but there's a lot coming.
Yeah, imagine. And also you recently launched a Navy Strength Rum at 57%, 57 ABV.
Yeah, you wanted me to tell you more on this one, huh?
Yeah, because when I was in Barbados, it was still not available. So, and it's interesting why, because, Navy Strength, the history, of course, of the Navy, British Navy especially. And why did you decide to come with overproof rum?
Good question. And actually, this one, it's another little anecdote. It's something that Trudiane had been working on a bit like a side project like this. She wanted to see how Eclipse, which is really our, let's say, our benchmark. It's been around since the 1910s, so more than a century old in terms of blends. But she wanted to see, and it's something that she's always been interested in, how the ABV really impacts the flavors and the length and the lingering effects of a rum.
Okay, interesting.
And I think did you taste the Black Barrel cask strength?
No.
Well, I need to find that for you then. But with Trudiane, we decided to do a Black Barrel cask strength as an exclusive for the distillery. So you can only purchase it at the distillery. But it's actually Black Barrel that instead of being reduced at 43% before being bottled, we simply just take it from the barrel that is finishing it, so these deeply charred bourbon barrels, and put it in a bottle. So you have some batches at 66%, you have some batches at 67%, but that 66 sounds like a terrible ABV, but at the same time, it's an ABV that, with the exact same product, gives you a completely different aromatic profile. Much more on the fruits. You almost don't get any kind of smokiness. And you get all the roundness of, let's say, pears. Obviously, you get a bit of peach. I mean, it's almost like summer fruit explosion, which is very different from what you know about the classic Black Barrel at 43%. So in a way, having this in mind, she was trying a few things. And as you know, Mangay has been a big, well, there's a natural bond for half a century with sailing and the sailor community.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to highlight this and do something unique that would really kind of commemorate this long-term collaboration, but also making it genuine. And I was like, okay, well, everybody knows about the Navy Strength, etc., but let's scratch a bit the surface. What is really the link? And is Mangay, can we have, an affordable Navy Strength in our portfolio? And discussing with Trudiane, she said, oh yeah, but I've been working on an Eclipse. Alors I changed a bit the aging of some of the ingredients. It's slightly older, but and so it's not Eclipse that has not been reduced. It's a slightly different blend. But at 57.1, again, you don't really feel the strength, but it gives an amazing, I mean, we drink Eclipse and soda in Barbados.
Yeah.
It's an Eclipse and soda with, again, so much more fruit. You don't get the vanilla or less. It's funny how the wood and the wood impact is much less prominent than in the classic Eclipse. So we felt it was an interesting proposition to offer, not to replace anything else, but just mostly for bartenders to have something a bit at a higher proof to have fun with, and for people who obviously like to mix their Eclipse. It works with Coke. I've never tried it, but some friends told me that it's nice with Coke. But me, with sparkling water or with tonic water, it's actually a very refreshing option, and you really get a lot of the fruitiness, the citrusy notes that you get in Eclipse. I mean, it's still very fresh. I wouldn't say don't drink it on its own or with ice. I mean, it's still Eclipse, so it's still more made for mixing than for sipping. But it's quite an interesting, yet very different proposition. So it was more to have fun, let's say.
Okay, it's interesting. Why? Because, of course, these are products, I mean, you said it, bartending, people in the bartending, I mean, bartenders always look for higher proof products to make stronger cocktails or just so. And it's, of course, also for you as producer to make a kind of a rotation to sell more rum, which is also always important for the cash flow. I imagine that this is part of the game.
It is, and to be fair, at some point, what I was having in mind was also to do something exclusive for travel retail, because sometimes ABV in some markets like the UK or Australia, if you arrive with a high proof, then the taxes on that are just crazy. So having something that is only available in travel retail would be interesting. But then the US said, oh yeah, that's great. If we can have something different, we would like to have it. So in the end, the idea of having something for travel retail was completely left aside. But yeah, why not? It was kind of, and even with the label, the idea of playing with a nautical chart, for me, that was also playing on the references to our sailing community friends, and it was kind of twisting the way that people see Mangay and see Eclipse in particular these days.
Yeah, it's I like this kind of things. I mean, high strength. I mean, I like rum when it's also a bit higher proof. To see the difference, you have a nice. I have this product. For example, you're showcasing the pot still and
Yes.
the copper, and it's amazing to see to have the two bottles side to side and taste them and see the differences. So this would also be interesting to do with the Eclipse, the 43. I think it's 43 Eclipse.
It depends. 43 it's 43 in Barbados.
Okay.
And it's going to be 40 in Europe, in the US, 37.5 in Australia for the ABV, ABV question.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So in a way, Caribbeans are probably the only place where it's still at 43, which makes it also quite different. I mean, if you taste the 40 and the 43, just a question of adding a bit more water, and that makes a huge difference. It's kind of crazy. And when you look at, Trudian can talk about ABV differences for hours, but when you look, for instance, at Master Blender Collection, and we had many conversations on the PX, which was the first time that we were releasing such an old ABV. There you go, an old product.
This is your gift you gave me.
Bah oui. Bon, I'm glad you tasted it.
I loved it. I keep the bottle because it reminds me. I live in Colombia and these products are not available. So.
It's not easy to get. And no. I checked again for. When Caro visits, I'll make sure that she puts some liquid in her suitcase.
Please.
To be fair, this one was very interesting because how do you make a 21 or how do you give a 21-year-old rum the complexity and yet the approachability? And really, Trudian didn't want to put an ABV that was too high compared to the other Master Blender collection, which can be between 48 and 55. And no. For this one, because of the complexity, because of the finesse, we have to go lower. Otherwise, we will lose some of the delicate aromas that will only express themselves at a lower ABV. So I've learned a lot actually discussing all this with Trudian. Because for instance, so the single estate, to go back to single estate, it's at 55. Two first ones have been released at 55% ABV. And I know that some coming will be at lower ABV for the exact reason that we want to make sure that we will have the complexity of aromas going through, or we will suggest people to actually add an ice cube or add a dash of water, as we do for Scotch, for instance. Yes, it's great to say, we have a very high ABV, but from an organoleptic standpoint, from an experience standpoint, I think being around 45, 43, 45, 48 is usually the top spot.
Yeah, it's not always easy for everyone. When I do rum tasting, sometimes I give some extra rums to our clients, and some of them are higher than just 40% regular Colombian rum. And just at 45, people you can see they're already kind of, it's not for everyone going up to 50 or 55.
No. You need to be careful as well.
Yeah. And speaking of the special releases.
Yes.
You were talking about, I have a question to you about the last one you launched, which is the Coffey Still Expression.
The Coffey Still, yes.
So there is a legend behind it. I mean, I don't think it's really a legend, but you will tell me about Reynold hints, called also blues.
Yes.
And I know that this Coffey Still, which this rum is produced, was discontinued in the 60s, if I'm not wrong, something like that. And thanks to Mr. Blues, the management could restore it, and it's thanks to him that now this Coffey Still is working again. Can you please tell me if you want to know more? Yeah, I want to know more if there is, if it's true or just a legend.
No, it is true. Huh? It is true, Renato. That's part of the things at Mangay as well. We are old enough to have plenty of stories to tell. We don't need to invent too much. But more seriously,
that's nice.
So it was really, and it's funny, the first time I visited Mangay, so I started in my previous position at Mangay in 2011, which makes all of us very young. And I remember walking through the distillery. At the time, it was about to be acquired by the group. So I remember I was with Frank Wards and we were walking around and he was telling us, oh yeah, so this is actually a very rare coffee still, but it was like dismantled in, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 pieces, and it was really everywhere, like pieces. Oh, that's the top part of the thing, blah, blah, blah. And when Rémi Cointreau acquired the distillation part, so the distillery part, Blues was obviously part of the team, and he's been in charge of distillation with Frank Ward at the time for years, for decades. And he's one of the persons who worked the longest at Mangay. He probably joined in the 60s. And I think the coffee still, as it used to be, got decommissioned in the early 70s. I don't have the dates, honestly. We are lacking a bit of data on this. What we know is that this coffee still has been purchased in the 1920s, to actually come as a support to the pot still. But it was very much at the start of the coffee. It's Mr. Coffey, Coffey.
Yes.
And it was really historically the first time that distillation could happen in a continuous way. So not like it used to be for centuries with the small alambic or the small pot stills that we still have, being from Spain or Scotland or France or whatever. So this was the first time that we could have a more optimized or maximized way of distilling spirits. And then after that, obviously, so this one was 100% copper, but then with time, we had stainless steel columns that were getting higher and higher, and etc. But this coffee still was very much one of the few that were made, respecting the designs of Mr. Coffey. So meaning quite short, 100% copper, etc., etc. And this has been, in use for about 50 years at Mangay until the decommissioning. And Blues was actually working on the distillation, obviously on the pot stills, but also on the coffee still. So when it was decommissioned, it was dismantled. They put the pieces because, you can always need a bit of copper here or there. So voilà. And I think, between the 70s and 2015, I would say, nobody really looked at it thinking, let's do something with it. And then, so the previous management at Mangay decided, okay, we have this, what is it exactly? And Raphael, who you might have met, who was the managing director, he's always been very much into history, so he really started to dig, etc. What he learned is that there's only 3 coffee still, 100% coffee stills in operation in the world today, or 5 years ago, and only one other was still working, and it was at Nikka in Japan. The other one is in Scotland or in Ireland, but it's not working. It's not used anymore.
Okay.
And he was like, okay, but let's see how we could actually
fix it.
Nobody knew how to fix that, and the only person who had to kind of remember how it was used and how it was made and how it was built and how it was working was actually Blues. And Blues, well, first they had to clean, so we had some people who are actually specialists in stills, and not coffee stills, but just stills, who cleaned all the remaining pieces. And then Blues said, okay, here we are missing a part that was exactly like this one, but it was there, I don't know where it is, so we had to rebuild a couple of places. The funny thing is that they built it a first time, but they built it the other way around, so it didn't work.
Okay.
And then Blues was like, yeah, I think it was probably like this. They reassembled it, and then it worked.
Okay.
So it was very much really, trial and error. No, it must have been like this, and obviously the knowledge of Blues first, using his memory, but also his knowledge of distillation helped a lot, because then we were able to make it function again, which allowed us to finish it in 2018, and it was recommissioned in 2019. And the product that we launched, Master Blender Collection number 7, so the tribute to Blues, the coffee still 100%, is actually the first distillation, the first official distillation made by Blues on this recommissioned coffee still that was aged for, I think it's 4 or 5 years, in ex-bourbon barrels, But this is really his first trial officially after recommissioning on this Coffey still. So when I remember we were having a conversation with Trudian, because what happened, Blues was already almost retired. And his son is working for Mangay as well, and he's in charge of the distillation at Mangay. So his name is Wave, and he's still very much involved in every product that we do. But Blues, well, he was half retired, and he was still very, very keen on helping and giving advice, etc., etc. I remember saying to Trudian, I would really love to do something with the Coffey still. I mean, we have something so precious, so unique. Let's do something, and for once we can sell something that is not just a blend of pot still and column still, etc. Let's do 100% Coffey still. And he said, oh, but I put aside in bourbon barrels the first distillation from Blues. I mean, it was just trials, etc. We tasted it. And honestly, it was exceptional and very different and very creamy. I mean, the signature of this Coffey still is very much the creaminess and the roundness. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. She was like, yeah, so we can do 100% Coffey still. I said, yeah, but because in 2020, Blues actually passed away. I just said, we could call it Blues, or we should do a tribute to Blues. And she started to cry. We cried together. And we're like, okay, that's a no-brainer. Let's do that. And it would be the first time that we actually recognize the great work of someone at Mangay by doing a tribute like this. Yeah, that was a very moving moment in her lab. But I think when we proposed that as well to Rémi Cointreau, to the management, I mean, obviously it's not something that we could decide like this. It had to be approved, and it was really one of the first times that at Rémi Cointreau a product would be holding the name of one employee like this. So the launch happened with the family. Blues family, so obviously his son, but also the rest of the family. We gave a bottle to each of the family member. It was a very moving moment. I think we sold a lot in Barbados for that reason as well. Yeah, I think this was a very interesting story because again, we managed to have an exceptional product being part of the Master Blender collection. It was also showcasing the pioneering spirit of Mangay, but it was also showcasing the kind of family spirit that you try to have here at Mangay in Barbados.
Yeah, because also Mangay is a small distillery, so it's not a big one. Like, I mean, I visited. Some people may think that Mangay is huge, like other big companies, but no, it's a small distillery. I don't know how many people work there, but it's not maybe more than 100 people.
No, exactly. 100 on high season, it's 100.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right, actually, Renato. It's a pretty small operation. And it's also, as you've seen, a very old one. And that's probably part also of the challenges we have. We don't have a beautiful and shiny and, everything has been around for quite some time. And it's in the middle of the north of the island. So all the wind, all the rain, all the salt from the ocean, all that makes it look a bit worn.
Rustic, which is also amazing. I mean,
it's part of the charm, but it's not easy.
Yes, of course, I can understand it. It's maybe more difficult on the operational side. So speaking of Barbados, we spoke about Rums. Now I want you to tell me more about rum in Barbados. How people from Barbados relate to rum. You told me to go to this rum shop, which Yes, I went one. The one looks like it's sponsored by Mangay. Amazing. It's the oldest one. I don't remember the name. I have some picture of it.
John Moore?
Can you maybe... Exactly, yes, John Moore. Can you tell us a bit more about, I don't know if you know about the history of why are they so popular in Barbados?
No, but rum, rum in Barbados, first, there's an honest pride, I would say. All the Bajans are going to tell you that rum was born in Barbados. It's the birthplace of rum. I mean, we say that at Mangay, but I mean, everybody says that on the island, and it's a piece of pride looking at the size of the island and the size of the population. Let's keep in mind that Barbados, it's only 30 kilometers by 40. I mean, it's tiny, 80,000 people. And apart from Rihanna, the other big thing that people know about it's Mangay and usually some other rums. But yeah, even the Prime Minister is saying that the island has two icons, Rihanna and Mangay. So it's kind of the history, let's say, of Barbados, rum, and even Mangay. It's been related since the very start. You know, the first English settlers arrived in 1625, settled in 27. We have proofs of sugarcane production on the Mangay estate in 1655. As you know, 1703 is the deed. It was when Mangay or the estate changed hands. There were a pot still house that rum was produced on the estate already at the time, so more than 320 years ago. So rum, sugar, all this industry was very much what built Barbados as it is today. And despite all the things that are associated with sugar production, I mean slavery, etc., the Bajans are very, very proud of this heritage, and they know that everything was not bright and beautiful. On the contrary, but they wouldn't be there, and everybody feels that what they reach today, it's thanks to this amazing heritage of rum, sugar, and bravery as well. So based on this, from this small little island, where does rum really come from still on a daily basis? Well, obviously there's this pride. So every time that a Barbadian travels, they will bring a bottle of rum with them. But here, really, rum is what we call the social glue. And this is what keeps the community together. And this is very well illustrated by the rum shop. Obviously, you can say that sometimes people drink a bit too much, but at the same time, it's very much a social place to gather. And it's at the same time, in many of the villages on the island, it's the convenience store, this rum shop. You want to have some bread, you want to have some eggs, you want to have some bacon, you want to have some rum, you want to have some water. This is where you go. And then this is also where the mayor, the fisherman, the baker, the banker, they will all gather, share a beer, a rum and soda, and share the latest news. And so it's very much of a social thing. Alors you can think it's only for men. Probably about 50 years ago, it was very much, funnily enough, it was told that each time you had a church, you had a rum shop next to it. Because the women were going to the mass, they were leaving the men at the rum shop so that they didn't eat the Sunday roast on their own before or with their friends. They could keep an eye on them, and everybody was going home after. But more seriously, I mean, today you will see men and women gathering at the rum shop, and it's very much more of a social gathering rather than really a place where you get drunk, etc.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, as well, the way that rum is consumed in a rum shop is very different from a cocktail bar. You go there, you buy your little bottle of rum, so it's going to be like the 200 ml or the 350 ml, and you will buy the mixers. They will give you some ice, they will give you some glasses, and then you share with your neighbor, you share And usually they say, when you open the bottle, you throw the cap away, because you never close your bottle and leave with your bottle. It's usually, you will share it with your neighboring tables, and it's a good icebreaker. That's the least we can say to engage in conversation. So I don't know what you experienced, but
I experienced what you're explaining to me. Yes, I really liked, because you don't need to buy a whole bottle, which is interesting. You can buy the small one, 200 ml. It's perfect. And yes, you said it. You're sharing it. We were talking with people. Yes, there were also foreigners. They were from the States. But it's fun, and you are enjoying the sunset, you are enjoying life, and you are also with locals, because there's a lot of locals there.
Absolutely.
And yes, you're right, they were drinking a lot, but they were having fun, which is of course the most important thing.
Usually the food, because Barbados, it's a very expensive island.
Yes.
And when you go to rum shops, you can really enjoy good food, good drinks for a very good price. Yeah. I mean, that's also part of the reason why the locals are going there. It's because, this little bottle won't cost you too much. As you said, you don't need to buy the big one, so you can also manage with your finance. And the food you will get there is very authentic, but also very tasty. It won't be something crazy, but it's kind of the good family, comfortable food. So you will tend to either go to your rum shop that is, your local rum shop, but sometimes you go to the one that is a bit more of a destination, but because you enjoy the place, or you enjoy the chef, or you enjoy the kind of drinks that they have, or you enjoy the brand that they serve, if it's Mangé. But
Yeah,
for instance,
there is plenty of course, not
there's a
just
lot.
Mangé. There is also the Foursquare products. There is also
You have the Cockspur, you have
exactly,
we have Banks, so which is the local beer.
exactly.
Usually you will have one rum that will help pay for the paint, and then you can have
Exactly.
your brand out. So that's the way it works. It's a bit of a community
Of
support.
course.
But as you said, yeah, John Moore is the oldest on the island, so it's on the west coast, and it's perfect for sunset. They're still in refurbishment today, so I mean, I'm glad you saw it open. Then you have the Thirsty Lizard, which is, for me, the best in terms of food. They have a Jamaican chef, and the owner works for Mangé, so it's a great display, but it's probably the fanciest of all on the island. Mm-hmm. You have a few on the east coast, and the east coast is, this much more wild and lush part of the island. So it gives you as well usually a nice view. So there's one that is a Foursquare one that is called Sea View on top of Bathsheba. Beautiful.
Okay.
But there's probably still 1,000 rum shops on the island. When you think about the amount of people, it's
And if you're planning to go, I'm talking to you, people listening to the podcast. Sure. If you're planning to go to Barbados, rent a car, because it's the best way to get around. It's an easy island. It's quite a flat island, so it's easy to drive around. It's not too complicated. Like, for example, I've been to Grenada. It's way more difficult to drive around in Grenada. But yeah, having a car, don't drink and drive, of course, but having a car is a good thing. And yeah, speaking of Barbados, you and Barbados, can you maybe tell me, you said it's now 3 years you are in Barbados.
It is 3 years.
How is Barbados treating you? How do you feel that? I know it's not always easy.
It's not always easy. No, it's not always easy. But it's like a small village. Huh? So I was in New York before, so you can imagine it's the complete opposite. And I would say it's really like a village, meaning in plenty of ways, everything is close. So you're never too far from a beach, which is great. You're never too far from a restaurant or from a friend. So yes, it's important to have a reliable car, but you don't spend that much time in a car. So it's really to go from a place to another. Now the thing is that there's not so many things to do here. Obviously, I work a lot. Between visitors, projects, tourists, etc. There's always something to do. If you like beach, if you like any water sports, I mean it's a beautiful destination. The beaches are very very welcoming. It's a very safe island as well. The food. Yeah, let's wait a little bit before we talk about the food. But I mean, what I find particularly pleasant here in Barbados is the Bajans. They are very hospitable. They are very friendly. They are very welcoming. They have this amazing combination of pride for the country and for everything that is to discover here. But they make it in a very humble way, and they really want to make you feel good and to make sure that you enjoy your stay in Barbados. So I've been to other islands. I think this one is probably first the safest one, and in terms of hospitality and feeling welcome, it's quite spectacular. Food-wise, I think, again, because it's everything is imported. It's very expensive to live here. It's very expensive to even spend a week holiday here. Hotels are very expensive. Restaurants are outrageously expensive, but it's because it's a small island. It's also an island with a strong British heritage. So in terms of food diversity, it's been very much inspired by old school English chefs, I would say. Okay. So you don't have a massive choice, and it's always a bit repetitive. You don't have a lot of, you have a few local specialties, but it's not like other islands where, it's not spicy. It's a lot of fried food. So it's important to drink water and to try to add some fruits and vegetables, because otherwise you can feel a bit full quickly, if I may say. Yeah, and again, looking at the size, I think it's an island that offers a lot of diversity. So, we were talking about West Coast versus East Coast. I think each part of the island, being the West, the North, the South, and the East, are very, very different. The West, it's very much, let's say, the posh part of the island, where you have this beautiful white sand beach, great resorts, beautiful hotels, beautiful restaurants, very expensive, beautiful villas, golf courses, you can play polo, whatever. The North is probably, I would say, the wildest, because you have the agriculture part. That's where the Mangé distillery is located. But you have the cliffs in the north that are quite spectacular to see and to watch. It's not so easy to access. I mean, the roads are in dismay, but it's worth going. Then you have the east, that is wild and lush, and it's probably like this combination of rocks, very strong, windy beaches with big waves. If you're a surfer, perfect destination. Don't even think about swimming there, because we'll never see you again. I mean, it's wild, but you get the lush vegetation, beautiful palm trees, and all these. I mean, it's really going to the jungle almost. And then you have the south, that is where I would say local and tourists mingle to party and to have, so it's more affordable restaurants, you have nice resorts, beautiful beach for surf, for kite surf, for windsurfing, surfing with turtles over there is actually, I mean, it's quite nice.
Yeah, of course, it's a nice island. A lot of people, when people go there, normally we go for vacation, and it's always different, the perception you have when you're on vacation and when you're living in a place, of course. That's why I'm asking you. And coming from New York and then in Barbados, of course, it's a bit cultural shock. The same for me when I was in Switzerland, and coming over here was
exactly
work, of course.
No, but a little anecdote could be, for instance, access to food is probably where I struggle the most.
Okay.
Sometimes you have no tomatoes for 3-4 weeks. You have no milk for 2-3 weeks. You have no yogurts for a month. So, you're very depending on,
of course,
on what comes to the island.
Okay, I think I have all the questions. I have just maybe last 2 questions I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
First, maybe coming back to your journey in the spirits with Remy Cointreau, what would the advice be to someone who wants to get into this world?
I like that question. Remember, yes, but it's a good one. I can give you what I feel is important. And what I always say to my team members, I don't think it's necessarily a question of enjoying spirits or not. I think it's more a level of curiosity, because at the end of the day, I think we are more, rather than being in the spirits industry, I think we are more in the entertainment industry, or in the pleasure or Epicureanism or hedonism industry. I see it more as a complement to hospitality. Hospitality is a good one. So I think curiosity is important. Curiosity towards people, but curiosity towards cultures. You can explain a lot from the difference between vodka, gin, scotch, and bourbon, just by understanding better the culture of the Scots, of the American from the South, from the Swedes versus the Polish people, etc. And the same can happen with wine, between maximization of production in America versus how important the terroir can be in France, and how protecting their own grapes in Italy can be. That kind of, I think, understanding history. So in a way, it's all a question of curiosity and trying to understand what's behind to better make it. Now I've almost only worked on, let's say, authentic, artisanal, crafty brands. I mean, I don't like the word craft necessarily, but brands with people behind that actually make it. And this is where, for me also, you need to find things that fit with your own values. So it's important to first also analyze your own values, what's important to you, so that you don't need to feel stretched when you have to defend or to talk about a brand or to help it evolve. If you're in marketing, how to work on packaging on something that you don't believe in. It's very difficult.
Of course.
So I would say honesty, curiosity, and pragmatism, because at the end of the day, things are changing. COVID, nobody knew what would happen. And honestly, we had to pivot a lot of things, how to still please your audience, to understand your audience, what could make them continue consuming or what could make them change their consumption habits. I can say, for instance, that they wanted to make sure, like we wanted to make sure that our clients, yes, would continue to consume Louis XIII at the time, but clearly they wouldn't go out, they wouldn't open and crack a bottle like this. So it was more, let's work with chefs that could give them opportunities to, create a dinner or create something at home. And that was a way of, for instance, adapting, but still believing in the same values. It's all about enjoying it with your close ones, making sure that you maximize the sensual experience, etc. So yeah, I would say that, and believe in yourself, because at the end of the day, we also need people with character and with personality, because again, we don't just sell a product. You will tend to buy a product because you had a good time with me, or we had a good time with you, Renato, and it's part of this as well. When I talk about the social glue earlier, this social glue is the combination between people and the spirits or the wine.
I agree with you. When you're curious, doesn't matter where you work, in which domain, you could be also in cars, whatever. If you're curious, you do not have to be really a connoisseur of what you're doing, but if you are curious, it helps a lot, and I completely agree with you. And this is my last question, I promise.
No, go ahead.
How do you see rum? I mean, yes, Maungay rum in the next years, and how do you see the category of rum in the next years? Yeah, it's a tough question.
It's a tough question.
But seeing the trends now, maybe as you do, going more in the single estate series, is it a trend that you see in? I don't know if you can maybe tell me what you think about this premiumization of the category.
No, it's a very good question, because I'm not so sure I have the answer. There's what I would like to see, and what I fear I will see. And it's a bit looking back as well in the mirror and seeing I was really expecting much more premiumization 10 years ago. And what I've seen is more of a polarization between still very, very cheap stuff that is almost sad to see. And in a way, it's probably me not necessarily understanding what consumers really appreciate in rum, which may be different from bourbon drinkers, Scotch drinkers, etc. I think there's still an expectation in rum where people want to have fun, and they don't necessarily care so much about how the product is made, who is behind. They just want to have a good taste, no matter how it's made. Did people add coloring? Did people add sugar? Did people add flavors? I mean, I've done research not so long ago, and I was amazed by the answers of people, actually, and the difference between rum and other categories. It's like, it's okay to have rums that have been because it gives a fun experience. And I was like, wow. And if I change the question and I say Scotch, completely different answer. No, I wouldn't drink that. And that, to me, is where we still need to do a lot on education in rum. That rum deserves the same kind of passion and love and respect of the raw materials as any other spirit. And at the same time, I want to listen as well to these consumers that are not all the consumers, but these consumers who are there to say, I don't really care about how it's made. I just want to have something that I can mix with my Coke or mix my Sprite, and have fun with it with my friends when we do a barbecue And like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. At the end of the day, why not? So Maungay clearly is not there to meet the needs of these people. And that's the issue, because it's probably still today the largest consumers of rum. But it's true, we wanted to do something more elevated, let's say, for people who are looking for the next rum in terms of how it's made and it's properly using the proper things and the selection of the raw materials and taking the time to do the proper fermentation. It's great. Is it what the consumers are waiting for today? Not so much. Or it's still a too small part of the audience that is interested in that. Will we change our way of doing rum? Probably not, because we've been doing it like this for 3 centuries. We believe in it like this. But it's also very important to explain to our shareholders as well, that, well, it may take longer. How long, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's where, my kind of my heart and my brain have to evolve differently, because my heart wants to keep doing something that is perfect and beautiful and respectful, etc. And my mind is telling me, well, Laurent, but then there's a big opportunity here that we are not grabbing.
Yeah.
So where do I stand there? I think there's still this polarization. I think it's going to completely continue. Single estate clearly fits into what my heart and my gut are telling me. And I hope that one day more people will feel the same. Luckily, we are not able to do that many or that much today of this single estate series. But if one day we can sell, I don't know, instead of 4,000 bottles, 4,000 cases, I will be super happy.
Yeah.
Well, we can't do more anyway, to be honest. But that's really where I don't know how things will evolve. Rum is still a massive category. Can we grow this? And it's not a question of price only. I think it's really the way it's made. I mean, we can talk about, adding sugar in rum. For me, it's a big question as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mangay did some products in the past where clearly they were sugar. We don't want to add sugar because we believe that time and wood is what rounds the corner. But it's true that adding sugar has happened especially in Latin American rums. It's been part of the process for centuries as well. So it's not a question of respecting or not respecting. I think it's also, do we need to agree on the definition of rum? I'm not even sure, because at the end of the day, each country that has been producing rums for decades or centuries, they have a history of making rum that can be different from a country to another, and that's what makes rum today interesting as well. It's this diversity, which no other category in spirits offers today. So we have advantages of being a rum. We have challenges in making sure that everyone understands what rum is, but why there are so many differences in rums. Again, I think it's a question of time and education. So I really appreciate what you're doing, actually, Renato, because we need more of you.
Thank you.
Because it's all these efforts that will also help people making, let's say, not necessarily better choices, but more choices that are more based on their knowledge. Voilà. Rather than advertising and marketing.
Yeah, this is the problem of rum. I think rum was always saw as an under category, just a mixing rum. For example, I'm not blaming anyone, but of course Bacardi, we know that Bacardi brought rum to the masses. Thanks to them also, but rum is what it is now. But also the problem we have with these products is that, they are for masses and they please the masses, which is maybe adding sugar is the easiest way to get quickly to the goal. And I was also talking to another producer here in Colombia, Julio Molano, which told me he's doing rums without added sugar. But he's also thinking he may one day add sugar to the rums because it's easier to sell in Colombia.
Right.
So that's a bit the problem in this category. But yes, it's also the advantage. People can choose between easy drinks, booze. If they want to get drunk, okay, they can get a bottle of $20 and mix it with Coke. But we also have products like yours, Mangay, and others, of course, which are high-end, but not just the high-end of the price, but the high-end, of the flavors of what you can get. And it's genuine products. And this is what I personally prefer, of course. But I lost myself now. But anyway...
No, but it's the importance of, I think, curiosity and education. Again, we go back to this point in a way. And it just takes probably more time than we were hoping, at least that I was hoping 15 years ago. But I think we shouldn't drop it. We need to continue the journey, take more people into the journey. Because at the end of the day, it worked for Scotch. Let's look at Scotch 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
So
it's a matter of time and educational, and the marketing is there. You are doing a great job.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's taking just time, and I think I saw it also in my rum tasting. I always try to give more, but sometimes I give too much to people. They don't care. That's the problem. So I see it. What can you do? They want just to have a rum and chocolate tasting. They want to get drunk.
Right.
Okay, perfect. We give it them to them, but
it's not always easy to, let's say, read the room, you know. It's a question
Exactly.
of what they've been knowing, what they've been interesting to know, and that was enough to take a decision so far. And now they can see that they can get overwhelmed in rum, as they may have been overwhelmed with scotch and with wine and with other things. And they're, oh, la, it's not so much fun anymore, actually, rum. It's getting serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you lose this kind of appeal that initially was the fun part. So.
Yeah. It's a difficult, you have to find the balance, and again, needs a lot of time. Anyways, Laurent, merci beaucoup.
Merci, Renato.
Thank you very much for your time.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, I hope to see you soon.
Likewise.
Don't hang up
No,
because I have something to tell you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renato.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.